Welcome to the Unisono Festival. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of Gozamos and Beat Latino. And we have Monica Lionheart with us. Hi, Monica.
Hello. Hi.
It's great to see you again. We've seen you at the LAMC, and it's really wonderful to have you here in Chicago. And so clear up first for me. I know I've read somewhere about your Puerto Rican background, but also New York was mentioned. But tell me a little bit more. I found out that I was wrong on that one. Tell me a little bit more about your background.
Well, I was born in Puerto Rico. My mother's from Valencia, from Spain, and my father's Puerto Rican.
Olé.
and I actually grew up in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, wow.
So when I speak Spanish, my accent is sometimes confusing to people because they expect me to be like, mía, pero por qué? You know,
right.
Or to have the eth, you know, speak like a Spaniard. But I actually find that I speak more like a Mexican because it's a strange thing because of San Antonio and all my friends, you know, in high school and growing up. I was in Puerto Rico until I turned 11, until middle school, and then I started, then I was in San Antonio.
So tell me, did that also influence kind of your music? I mean, you had like the Puerto Rico, and then of course San Antonio. I mean, do you have any particular memorable childhood musical experiences?
Well, my mother is a big influence, and my family. You know, they all play instruments, and we communicate with music.
Oh.
You know, we communicate. Like my grandfather used to. He passed away, but he used to wake me up with the accordion and just play music for me to wake up and improvise.
Your Puerto Rican grandfather, or
my mother's father. Yeah.
Wow.
So actually, my name is Monica Rodriguez Synesthesia because my mother's father is Italian. My mother's mother is from Valencia as well.
Wow.
So my Synesthesia is an Italian last name. So. That side of the family is very, European. He played accordion, he played trombone, violin, piano, and he just communicated that way. And my family communicated through music, and it was really, for me, easier to write a song about how I felt in a way, and really own the kitchen in that moment and act for my grandmother or imitate. It was just it's a very lively environment.
Wow. So, and all these instruments that your grandfather and other members of your family played, you're a multi-instrumentalist yourself. You're not a one-instrument woman. Tell me a little bit more about your instruments.
I think instruments are like colors, and for some people they want to use certain colors. And for me, I always felt like I wanted to understand them all so that I could play them or compose with them. And if I could master them, that would be great. But at least if I could express what I felt through them, or be able to tell other musicians that this is what we need to do for this part. Be able to rehearse them. I have an understanding of where they're coming from. I played drums for a Mexican band called Sweet Electra.
Really?
Yeah. I play guitar, acoustic guitar, electric guitar. I played flute. I'm going to play flute with Bacha Massive tonight, the headliner.
Wow.
I played piano. That was my first instrument when I was 5.
Wow.
So I think it's everything is a color, and sometimes you need that color, and sometimes you don't.
So tell me about the different colors of each of those instruments from your point of view. It's interesting.
I think that. I don't have. There's some people that have, synesthesia, which is that,
It's funny that you would mention that.
Right.
I'm fascinated by that phenomenon.
Right. No, it's an amazing thing. But that's not what I mean. I just mean that it's like a color in terms of timbre, like the texture. And sometimes you need a certain. A song will call, I want strings there, or I want a nylon string because I don't want an electric guitar, or I don't want metal, strings, because I want it to sound like a harp, but I want it to be played in a more traditional Spanish. So it's really nice to know when to use a color according to your own imagination, and there's no right and wrong. There's also, for me, no finished product. It's always, I go back to songs that I wrote many years ago, and I'm like, that was a good start. I wonder, and for me then I thought, that was finished. But there's always something that you can do with it, and sometimes I'll save just the string part to something and recycle it, and use it in a different place, or finish out I don't think there's ever an ending to music or to a song and what you can do creatively. So.
Well, you might have a little bit of synesthesia. I've always thought if your brain had to be kind of a little messed up, it should be messed up in that way, that you would, that sounds would have colors or tastes or flavors, and
Of course, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I have a friend though that was taught perfect pitch or relative pitch through colors. So every day they would play bing a note, and they would hold up the color yellow for that note. And the kids, every time they heard music, after a while, they hold up green for D, and then for E, a different color.
Wow!
And after a while, the kids were so conditioned, to hearing and seeing the color flash that when they heard music, they heard it, and they would see the colors, when they're hearing the music. Anyway,
wow! So they became
so it was conditioned relative
synesthesia.
Pitch, but it wasn't synesthesia in terms of that particular diagnosis, but it was synesthesia in essence, because that's basically how one would describe it, right?
Now you were mentioning taking pieces that you've recorded before and saving them and reusing them. You're also a producer, so you also definitely have an electronic component. How did that happen in your music? Was it like all of a sudden you thought, I need to work my music in a different way, or?
Right. No, it's just, I thought, wow, I know how to play all these instruments, but if I could only learn how to, record them well, because I was telling the other guy that I used to ruin my mom's cassette. All of my mom's cassettes were like me figuring out a song, and that was when I was in elementary school. And but after a while, I really wanted to learn, and actually, I studied at NYU. I have a master's in music technology, and I really wanted to learn not only what would be effective for me as a producer, but what would be effective in terms of MIR, which is music information retrieval, which is with the kinds of things that Pandora uses to identify certain songs and know how to select songs for you. And when you're a musician, you basically have to be a one-stop shop. You have to do your own artwork, you do your own recordings, you have to, figure out so many things, create apps. If you can really, be multifaceted, then you can survive in this climate of music being such a challenge to have an actual lucrative career, and supportive of your own, be able to support your own work if you can be multifaceted. So it was like a do or die type of
situation.
Right.
What are some of the challenges that you're talking about, this difficult environment, and I agree, it's for artists that have a craft that they really express, that doesn't conform to what is necessarily the most sellable product. In other words, they're not manipulating their art to make it more sellable, but they're just expressing really what they have within. It's tough, It's tough.
Right?
It's tough to make a living. So what are some of the challenges? Is it a challenging environment?
It is a challenging environment for sure, because one, there's an oversaturation, I think, of music, and at the same time, in that oversaturation, the things that are highlighted are in a very mainstream circuit, because they have the funding, or because it's political, or because of television, which also has a very clear demographic. So it's tough, but I think that it's possible. And persistence and time and really loving what you do. Things will catch on, and if not, at least you did what you loved. And many in our history of music, many of the greatest musicians and composers were never recognized during their life. So music is eternal.
What about being a woman or being a Latina? Is that sometimes also pose its own set of challenges in addition to being a musician, right?
Well, the kind of music that I make is I think so, because even though there's a lot of new artists, like David, I can name many new artists that are doing kind of solo acoustic music that has electronics and strings. There are, but I think that being a woman is difficult, and also you get kind of pigeonholed in terms of, oh, well, she's Latina, this is what I should. Actually, I had someone tell me, oh, you told me you were a musician, and I knew you were Latina, so I figured it was going to be this, and I didn't listen to your album. I'm so glad that a year later I listened to. I was like, what? Are you? It's that kind of thing happens, because generally the masses still think, I have an expectation of what you're going to be doing, And in this, I think in the scene, it's also harder for women because, or harder for a woman who's Latina because not only do they pigeonhole you and think that, oh, well, she's going to be doing salsa all night. Not that anything's wrong with salsa. I love salsa. But also just the environment. You know, I'm usually around men, and most of the musicians are men, and that's fine. But it's just the way I think it is, and it's a different vibe, I guess. So not making excuses. Just
tell me about the last name, Lionheart. Okay, so it was Jimenez. No, Ginestre. I remember. Ginestre, and then before that.
My father's last name is Rodriguez.
Rodriguez Ginestre. Became Lionheart. Artistically.
I just felt that this particular name was. It just felt right for me. You know, there's no backstory, in a sense. I mean, when I was in Puerto Rico, I lived in Ponce a lot. You know, and I have family that's still there, and Ponce de Leon, and also Spanish Star. I guess I associate with the lion, and I think the lion is the ruler of the heart, and it's just, I don't know. It's a lot of small things that just came together. Symbolism, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, I was the thing about being the live voice for Pachamasi. That surprised me. I mean, not surprised me, but I mean, it seems to be an unusual arrangement, right? Is that to have one voice? I guess do the recordings and then you're always the performer, or no? Or how does that?
Right,
how does
that's
that
a
work?
Good question.
Yeah.
Well, I think Pachamasi's albums initially had many different singers, and I think that's something that Nova likes to keep as kind of like Massive Attack, that they have many different singers that come in, and I think journalists rather, they thought it was only one singer. But if you really look at the credits, you see, lots of different names. But then one person needed to come and try to embody all those women. All those women. So I've done that for the last 2 years, and in the last album, If You Want It, I began collaborating with Nova. But in this album that's coming out soon, in the fall, hopefully, in the winter, actually, it became a more formal collaboration. So we're looking forward to releasing that album where I'm on every track and I help.
And you
write
composed, also, good. So, I put all the talents, all your talents to work.
Thank you. No, I think it's as I was saying before, I felt like I didn't really clarify that answer about being a woman and being Latina. But it's really, it can be a blessing as well. It's also like sometimes it's the way that you're able to feel and express things the way that no one else can. And even though that guy didn't listen to the album for a year, when he finally did, it really stood out for him. And so it's a blessing, and sometimes it can feel like a curse, but after you get past the challenge, it's there's always something positive to come away from. With.
Do you have a conscious kind of, I don't know, as a musician, a conscious vision that this is what I want to express, or is it more kind of improvised or spontaneous? It's what sort of happens in the moment.
When I'm composing, I think it happens, and that's what's beautiful. It's self-therapeutic. In fact, this solo album, I wasn't gonna release it because I thought, this is my own therapy session. I don't need to share this with anyone.
A therapy session?
I just felt like it was the end of this 6-year relationship, and I didn't have a way of expressing a lot of things and looking back and saying, okay, I wish I had done this better. I'm happy that this happened, or that all these emotions, and they became poetry, and that poetry became music, and sometimes you need a way of some people, they really like do sports to get their emotions and their energy out, and some people meditate, and some people they travel to see other things and find new inspirations. And I've always found that music is my partner and my best friend,
So Indian Summer, is that? Yes. Indian Summer is then, was this therapeutic, cathartic kind of working through things that went
Bittersweet.
Bittersweet.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, not all of it. Some of it, I think, was sort of looking towards the future or out of that headspace. But I think that a lot of it was fueled by just reflection on what just happened. You know, it's a powerful thing. You know?
Wow.
So somebody before had asked me if it's easier to write music in love or out of love, and I really like that question actually, because I find that, you know, in nature, if you look at the mating rituals, you see animals are very likely to do their songs like sparrows,
spread the
when they're out of love, because they're trying to call, you know, and they have so much. It's easier for them to sing then, and I find the same thing. Out of love is definitely an easier time than in love. Even though if you find love in its truest form, you should rejoice about it. And music is a special part for that, but it's easier, I think, out of love. There's a yearning and a sense of honesty, of, you know, a desire, I guess.
So your family are they still in San Antonio?
They're still in San Antonio.
They love your music?
Yeah, they're very supportive.
Great. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you again.
Likewise.
And as always, fascinating.
Thank you.
Fascinating, very interesting points of view about everything. It's a treat to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much,
I
Monica.
appreciate it.